Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Green Left Show. Today we're going to be talking about trans rights. My name's Alex Bainbridge. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that we are filming this show on stolen Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded, and we pay our respect to elders past and present. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Also, at the outset, I just want to say that if you like the work that we do, please become a Green Left supporter if you're not already. It is the number one way you can help support the work that we do. It is the best way to get the content that we produce, as well as a bit of financial support for Green Left. It makes all the difference. Plans start from just $5 a month, and it's, as I said, the number one way you can support our work. Today we're going to be talking about trans rights, and I'm joined by two guests: Charlie Murphy, who is a trans activist in Sydney and a member of Pride and Protest, as well as other groups, and also Nova Sabrelski, who is a trans activist in WA and a member of the Socialist Alliance. The overturning of Roe versus Wade in the United States by the Supreme Court has been a dramatic development, perhaps not surprising, but nevertheless still is very shocking. And what it does show is that rights that have been long taken for granted can be overturned and upended by an insurgent right wing. One of the main campaigns that the right wing has been waging in recent years in order to gain ground is their attack on trans rights. This is an international phenomenon. We've seen it particularly violently in the United States, but also in Australia as well. In the recent federal election, with the LNP endorsing Catherine Deves and Liberal leadership going out of their way to endorse her particular brand of transphobia. And so I began by asking Charlie, can you please tell us why is it you think the right wing is attacking trans rights in this way, and what does it mean?
Yeah, I think that the current right wing attacks against trans people are one of the oldest tricks in the playbook of the right, which is to divide and conquer. Trans people are members of the working class. It's no surprise that actually a lot of the attacks are focused on rights in schools. Because trans people often, if they are in employment at all, are in employment which is in feminised labour, and that includes teachers and educators. It is a deliberate attack to say that we as working class people are separate from each other, we're different, we're people to be afraid of. And I think that's pretty clear in what has happened both in the US and in Australia. In Australia, we had, the debate around the Religious Freedoms Bill, and what that essentially was about was giving more power to the bosses to hire and fire, to not hire or to fire queer and trans workers. And that's very much the same thing that's happening in the US as well. We saw that in Florida there was the Don't Say Gay bill. Again, it was attacks on schools, and there have been a lot of attacks in general on queer educators in the US as well. So it's obvious why they're making those attacks. It's because they don't want workers' power. They don't want workers' power for trans people. They don't want workers' power for anyone. But how do you strip away workers' rights and don't frame it in that way? Well, you say that you're protecting children at school, so that's why we need more power for religious bosses. We're protecting against the groomers in the US. That's why we're going to have charter schools. It's all about taking power away from the hands of working class people, which trans people are overwhelmingly, and concentrating it in the power of bosses.